The hallway echoed with the sounds of laughter, lockers slamming shut, and footsteps hurrying to first period. But in the middle of that regular high school morning chaos, Aaliyah walked slowly, her backpack clutched tight against her back and her eyes locked on the floor. She had transferred to Lincoln High just 2 weeks ago. New school, new people, new whispers. And none of them were kind. Whispers followed her everywhere. Why does she always wear those old sneakers? She's so quiet, probably thinks she's better than us. But Aaliyah wasn't better than anyone. She just wanted to blend in. She wanted peace. The last thing she wanted was attention. But sometimes, the world doesn't care what you want. She had barely made it past the science wing when it happened. 3 boys, Marcus, Troy, and Ryan, the self-proclaimed kings of the junior class, stood leaning against the lockers. Their grins widened when they saw her. "Yo, new girl," Marcus called out. She didn't respond. She never did. She just kept walking. That's when Troy stepped in front of her, blocking her path. "Where do you think you're going?" he sneered, leaning closer. Aaliyah flinched, her heart thudding in her chest. She tried to sidestep him, but Ryan moved in too. Then Marcus reached out and grabbed her by the collar. The hallway went quiet. It was that awful kind of silence when something terrible is about to happen and nobody knows what to do. Students froze. Some pulled out their phones. Some just watched, wide-eyed, waiting to see what the new girl would do. She looked fragile. Too soft. Too silent. But the silence broke in the most unexpected way. In one swift movement, Aaliyah grabbed Marcus's wrist with her left hand, yanked his arm away from her collar, and twisted it behind his back. With her right foot, she hooked behind his ankle and brought him to the ground, flat on his face. Before anyone could react, she stood firm, breathing hard, but her face was calm. "Don't touch me," she said quietly. Everyone stood in stunned silence. Marcus groaned on the floor. Troy and Ryan didn't move. Neither did Aaliyah. A teacher came running out from a classroom, demanding an explanation. Phones were quickly hidden. But no one could deny what they saw. It wasn't just self-defense. It was something more, controlled, trained, fearless. Later that day, as the principal called Aaliyah into his office, word had already spread through every hallway, every classroom, every social feed. The new girl put Marcus on the floor. And the narrative began to shift. But behind her calm surface, Aaliyah wasn't celebrating. She was tired. Not from the fight, from the years leading up to it. In her old school, she had been bullied endlessly for the color of her skin, for her hair, for her quietness, for being different. She tried to stay silent. She tried to ignore it. Until one day, it got physical. That day, she went home with bruises. That day, her father, a former military instructor, started teaching her basic self-defense. That day changed everything. Aaliyah had spent years learning discipline, not violence. "You only use this when there is no other way," her father always told her. "It's not about showing off. It's about surviving with dignity." That moment in the hallway wasn't about revenge. It was a declaration that she would never again allow anyone to make her feel powerless. Not with words. Not with hands. The school launched an investigation. Several students gave statements backing Aaliyah. Security footage confirmed everything. Marcus was suspended for physical aggression. Aaliyah. She received support she never expected. Teachers reached out. Students started sitting with her at lunch. Even the school counselor invited her to share her story in a school assembly. Not about the fight, but about the pressure of fitting in, the pain of prejudice, and the courage it takes to stand up without sinking to someone else's level. At the assembly, Aaliyah stood nervously in front of the entire school. She shared parts of her journey. The crowd listened, really listened. She ended with words she'd repeated to herself 100 times, "You can be strong and still be kind. You can be quiet and still be powerful. And no one gets to define your worth by how loud you are." When she stepped down from the podium, there was a moment of silence, then a standing ovation. Aaliyah didn't become popular overnight. She didn't need to. What she became was respected. Not because she could fight, but because she chose when to. By the end of that semester, the bullying stopped, not just for her, but for others too. People had seen what happens when someone stands up, not with anger, but with strength. And the girl who once walked the halls alone was now the reason others walked with pride. Sometimes, it's not the loudest voice that inspires change. Sometimes, it's the quiet strength of someone who refuses to be broken, even when the world tries its hardest to bend them.